first two singles off the new album on our show, and people have absolutely fallen in love with them, so congratulations.
Thank you so much, I appreciate that.
So tell us a little bit about what sparked this album. What was it after 10 years that made you decide now was the right time to sit down and start working on a brand new album?
Make long story very short. I mean, my heart of rock and roll is still beating. So the last singer, Joti, he got problems with his voice very badly. So doctor told him, you have to stop singing right now, otherwise you lose your voice anyway, totally. So that was quite not good news, let's put it this way. So it took me 10 years to find somebody, or 8 years actually, to find somebody who's able to sing the old classics and replay or sing like Charlie Yoon or Fernando Garcia or Joti in one person. And all of a sudden, I was doing 2 years ago a show with my solo band Herman Frank. I was doing a festival in South Germany, and I entered the venue and I heard this band playing, and on top of this band there was this magical voice, and I watched the set, and it was called The Order, the band. It was Johnny's original band, and I said to myself, oh, that's the guy I'm looking for for years now. So I started talking to him after his show, and we decided, okay, he was very excited about doing Victory or new thing, and I said to myself, oh, with this guy, it might be worth to come up with a new album. So, but that's the reason why there was such a long gap in between.
What was it about watching him play live that made you know that he was the perfect person for Victory? Was it something about the way he was performing, or was it about his voice? What was it?
First, I mean, all the reasons in one together. First of all, as I said, I just heard the voice, and I said to myself, my goodness, if you close the eyes, it sounds like Fernando Garcia. And then I saw him acting on stage, and actually he's in the best age. He's beginning of 40 and good looking and a really, really nice guy. So it matched perfectly.
So how did you start the writing process for this album? Did you sit down with him and start fleshing out songs, or how did that writing process work this time around?
Oh, like in every album I did so far. I mean, I sit down in the morning practicing guitar back home, and then once in a while a riff shows up in my mind on the guitar. So I go to the studio working out for these riffs, because for me every song needs a kind of good guitar riff or recognizable guitar riff. So I'm working a couple of songs out in the studio. Then I send him over at this time, because there was COVID already, and so yeah, it's a process going back and forward, using a lot of WhatsApp, using a lot of emails, a lot of Zoom meetings, and blah blah. And I kind of like prepare the songs, nearly finished, give him also the idea of my vocal line on the song, and then it's working back and forward as I said. And for sure, Johnny is able to put a couple of other lines on top, because my singing is just a little bit limited. So it took us maybe half a year, 9 months to come up with the songs. But after the first 2-3 songs, we felt really comfortable in this way to go on. And for recordings, we met in Hanover in the old horror studio. I mean, there had been Scorpions in the early days. Victory recorded a couple of albums, Halloween. So I wanted to go back to the studio, because I'm based in Hanover too. We got tested. They flew in, and then they entered the studio, and I locked the door.
Wow!
And so nobody could escape for 14 days. Every day we had been writing a list, and somebody went to the supermarket outside and put the food and the drinks in front of the door, and so nobody stepped out inside. We took a really care about all these orders for keeping distance and stuff like that. But I wanted to record the album face to face, and it was worth it, because then you can act in the same second somebody's recording something. You can act in the same second and say, let's try a little bit different, or go for another bridge or something like that.
What was that like, being in the studio for 14 days straight and living in there? Was it something that you found brought the band closer together, or were there times when you kind of felt claustrophobic and needed your own space?
No. If you're in the process to come up with some new stuff, I mean, you only got good feelings, and everybody was in a very, very good mood. It brought, as you said, the relationship of the band was fantastic, and is still fantastic. And I want to do, if I want to do another Victory album and try to catch the spirit of the classic albums from the early, in my opinion, people have to sit together in one studio and write, not record at the same time, but create the songs in a process where you've been in one room, you know.
Yeah. Is that something that you've
nobody get depressed or something?
Yeah. Is that something that you've always done with Victory? Because I know just recently I watched a documentary about George Martin's Montserrat Studios, and that was something that he always encouraged. When bands went to record in his studio, he would get them to stay at the studio for the entire time. Was it something that you had done before, or was it this time kind of forced upon you because of COVID?
No, I mean, I still remember where a band had been able to stay in the studio at the same time for a couple of weeks, as we did. As I did a lot of albums in one studio. For example, Whistler Studio is the biggest studio in Europe. We recorded Temples of Gold and Culture Killed the Native, and the band was there for 6, 7, 8 weeks. That's what was kind of normal in the early days. It took over in the last decade, or maybe 15 years, that people just send around files from one place to the other, from one continent to the other, and then they think, oh, that's a good album, or that they come up with some really great songs. I doubt that. Yeah. I think music is a thing you have to do. It's called music, and if you call yourself a band, then you have to do it together at the same time in the same room.
Definitely. And you mentioned before about the riffs and the music, but what kind of things were inspiring you lyrically this time around?
I mean, Victory was known as a rock and roll band, and it's still a rock and roll band. I wanted to go on as a rock and roll band, and so it's all a lot of songs about relationships in between girls and boys, love, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. We might have left the drugs out in this time, because I mean, I'm getting in an age where you shouldn't use drugs anymore. Yeah, it's just the truth, you know. It took us too long to get over it. But on the other side, Johnny is known as the most inspired poet of the universe. So he came up with some strange things, and I said, "Hey, it's. I mean, we are not in the club of the dead poetries, so let's let's have it in a common way and talk about things that happen to the normal people, you know."
Definitely. This album, it's one of those albums that when I listen to it, I want to hear it live. What's the plans for you and the band now? I know that everything's opening back up here in Australia. We're finally out of lockdown after 230 days. What's the plans now for you and the band?
I mean, as you said, you had a lockdown for 230 days. We have a lockdown now for 1.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's going really bad these days in Germany again. I mean, the numbers of sick people raise every day, and they have the highest point ever and stuff like that. But 2 weeks ago, we got a chance to do 3 shows that had been the only 3 shows that had been cancelled this year, from about 30 shows. And so we did one in Germany, one in Belgium, and one in France. Went out very well, and obviously we want to go out there on the road. But right now it looks like everything is going down again and will be cancelled. There's a tour planned end of January. I'm not sure if this is going to happen.
What were the new tracks like to play live? Because like I said, they sound like they're the kind of tracks you want to hear live. What were they like to play live?
Actually, we did on these 3 shows, which just because the album is not released, so we the record company says, please don't play the new songs yet. So leave this up to the tour, and the album will come, will be on. So we had to, we went back to our back catalog, and easily we could have done 4 hours and 5 hours concert, but we did 90 minutes plus, and we played the classical stuff like Temples of Gold, Don't Analyze, Checks in the Mail, and like this. But on the tour, we will show them for sure a lot of new tunes.
Awesome. I know we're running out of time very, very quickly, so I've got 2 quick questions to finish off with. First of all, every Victory fan here in Australia, like myself, that grew up listening to the band will want to know, are there plans to come to Australia for a tour in the future some stage?
There's always a plan to come all over the world. As you know, Australia is on the other side of the world of Germany. So it might be a little bit difficult to come over there. I mean, it's maybe sometimes or mostly it's a matter of budget.
And
I've been there with Accept once, and I love this country. I love the people over there. It's a good crowd there, but as I said, quite honestly, it's just a matter of budget.
And to finish off, of course, you'd always be welcome here with open arms in Australia. But to finish off, what would you like to say to all of your Australian fans out there before they go out and grab this fantastic album on the 26th of November?
Rock and roll guys out there, I guess this album is an album you might be excited on. If you get ever a chance to listen to a couple of songs, I'm quite sure you will buy the album. It's really worth it, and it's the true rock and roll.
Definitely. Well,